Hey ladies and gentlemen, I'm JD and welcome to my channel. You're not getting to see my nice face today, so let's get right into it. So today I wanted to make a video on how to shim a balance. Now the question is, why would you ever shim a balance? Well, look how nicely this one is running right now. It's running perfectly, and it's got a really good amplitude as well. And this watch I completely cleaned and I repaired, and I replaced the balance staff on this watch with a brand new balance staff. So when you get a new balance staff on there, it may or may not be the right length. So you have a couple of options here to change the length of the balance staff. One is to put it in a J-Cot tool and then burnish or take material off the top or the bottom, which is dangerous. If you take the material off the bottom, there's a chance that the impulse jewel and or the roller tabler is going to lower because you've removed material from the bottom, and it might lower enough to actually let the pallet fork touch the table, which is not a good thing. If you take so if you leave that alone and you take too much off the top, you could have an issue where the hairspring is touching the balance cock, but not likely, but this could be an issue. So if you're going to take material off, I would recommend you take it off the top. But in this case here, the watch is running wonderfully. I've seen some watchmakers actually bend the plate or bend the balance cock upward to accommodate the balance staff being too long. I'm not sure whether when they deliver you these balance staffs, they deliver the exact spec balance staffs for this watch, but in this case, the balance staff was just a bit too long. And I could tell because when I tighten the screw, and it's down there pretty good, but there's this little tiny gap. So when I tighten the screw here, as you can see, I just tighten this ever so slightly, and guess what happens? The balance stops. And it's stopping because the upper balance cock here, is allowing the, let me just get this going again. The balance cock is squeezing the balance staff and causing it to stop. Now, there's a couple of repairs you could do to fix this. I've done this before. You could unscrew the top here, and you could try to remove material. If you want to move it inward, you could remove material from the jewel, which moves it inward. I'm not sure how to bring it out by using a lathe or removing it, right? So you wouldn't do that. You could try to loosen up the screws here and raise the cap jewel, because it's the cap jewel on the top that's stopping the watch, right? But then again, you don't have a nicely secured cap jewel, which could cause a problem. And on the back end of the watch, you could actually take that cap jewel and unscrew it and do the exact same thing. But neither of these are a good and permanent fix. So what I really want to do is move this balance cock up ever so slightly. And to do that, you shim it. So this is a common practice with watchmakers, by the way. This isn't something I invented. Shimming a balance is pretty common after it needs a repair from the factory. So let me move this over just a bit. So I've got what you call watch paper here. What you call your watch paper. And it comes in a whole whack of watch paper. So this is what it looks like. It comes in 1,000 sheets of watch paper. Contains 1,000 sheets of lintless tissues, right? And that's the paper and watch paper. And Security is the name of the company that makes it. And there's this huge stack of this watch paper. Probably take you 10 years to get through that as you need it. You use it for drawing out parts, but it's actually really good for shimming a balance. All right, so what I want to do is I want to be able to take this watch paper and get that watch paper right in between the balance and the plate here, right? So it's very tricky. So I probably don't need a lot in there. So I probably only need to fold it once to get it in there. But it's not an easy thing to just get that in there. And you look at how wonderfully this balance is working without that in, because there's no pressure on that pivot on the top, right? So, and I've loosened it ever so slightly. So what I like to do, we'll see if this works this time, because sometimes you have to fart around with it, as they say in the watch world, is I like to take a sheet like this, and I'll make a cut. So I'll take this. Let me just move the camera back and we'll start it up again for a sec. Alright, so I'll take this like this, and I can fold it first and then cut it, or just cut it first, right? So I'll just cut it first. So get yourself a pair of really good scissors and make a cut on this and let it drop, no problem. And then you've got a sheet of paper. So now what you need to do is fold that paper once, right? Which is easy. You just take your fingers like this and put a single fold on that. And I'm assuming that a single fold will be enough distance underneath that balance staff to solve my problem. So, and I don't need a lot of this under here. So just a little bit, right? So I folded it like this. So now it looks like this. And then your edges or your sides won't be completely trimmed. So what I want to do is trim the sides. Watch my scissors, they're going to land on something. And I'm going to leave a very small slice of watch paper right after I trim it, like that. And then cut it, trim it, and then cut it like this. And then just discard that other piece, right? Hang on, I got to get another tool. So now you've got something that looks like that, right? And now what I want to do is slide this in, and I want to slide this in underneath the balance, or the balance cock. And I need to slide it in before it hits some of the alignment studs that are in the balance cock. So if I could find a balance, I could show you an alignment stud. I think I may have one over here. Do I have a balance somewhere? Do I have a balance? This is not my lucky day. I don't think I have a balance. I thought I had one in my up front here where all my crap is. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a balance here. Try not to hit the camera. All right, so there's what a balance looks like. And so this is almost different color, but it's almost the same vintage as this balance. So there's a balance there up close, right? And you're shimming, where you're shimming, shimmity, shim, shim, cherie. I'm hoping I got a little more real estate than this, but you're either shimming right inside here, or you're shimming on the outer edge, like that. If I can find a shim that's between the screw hole and the stud, all right, that's perfect, because it'll slide right through. So I need to actually find a way of shimming that in there. So what I'll do, and that would sit down like that, and that would raise the balance just a bit. I've seen bad watchmakers actually just bend this balance, like bend it up a bit, like that, and then put it back in, and you've got a chance of actually ruining the balance by doing that. Like, bending it is not a smart idea. Shimming it is much better. And you know, and your balance, your perfect pivots that came with your new balance staff are going to remain in place. Usually I don't have to shim if I make the balance staff myself, but then sometimes you can screw up the balance staff itself and then screw that up. So all I want to do is get this paper inside there. Now I got the balance ticking away like that, so very lightly touch that with my fingers, and that's not going to stop or ruin anything. And then I'll loosen up the screw a little more, because I want to be able to get that shim underneath, right? So I'll just loosen that screw up to give me more real estate here. And then I'll just do this and see if I can wedge that up a bit. So it's loose now. And this paper doesn't have a lot of girth to it, eh? So then I've got to slide that under. So let me get a close-up on that. There's my wonderful close-up. Give me a close-up. Give me a close-up. This is a close-up. Little Bugs Bunny for you there. So the first thing I want to do, I take my shim, and you notice I got a bit of a grip on the back of it because it's wider. And if I can, I'll move the balance up a bit. So you take the world's smallest screwdriver, this color here screwdriver, which is orange, and that's very small. And I may have to get in close with my glasses here, so hopefully I don't breathe in the camera. And I want to lift this up just a bit, but enough to get that shim underneath a bit. And then move it. So I'm going to move that shim over, and I'm going to keep pushing the shim inward with my screwdriver until it hits the end. So that shim has hit the end. Now that's shimmed right now. Now what I don't want to do is pull it out or cut it, because that went all the way to the end, and I can actually look on the other side between the two and see that there's just a small piece of paper showing, and that's between the screw and the alignment stud. So what I've done is I've put the shim, this is the alignment stud in the front of the balance. Get my hand in there so you can see this. This is a focus, not just a shitty car. So There, I figured out how to put my hand this way more so it focuses on the other side. So there's the alignment stud, and there's the jewel on the top of the balance cock, and there is there is where the screws the balance cock into the main plate right there. And I managed to get that piece of paper right between the two, which is nice, right? I've seen other watchmakers too score the balance, like actually make a mark on that balance somewhere in here, just score it so the metal raises up, and that's another method of doing it, but I don't recommend that, so because it's damaging the balance cock itself. So they call it a balance cock because it's only got one screw, and it's only held on with a single screw. If it had two screws in it, would be called a balance bridge. Like in my Hebdomas pocket watch, it's a balance bridge because it's got two screws. And if you've got watches like that with two screws, then great. So what I want to do is test if this is good enough. And the only way, I was going to use my needle here to actually shimmy that piece of paper over, but actually the screwdriver worked perfectly, right? Just raising it up a bit. So if I can get this going again, and I can tell by if this works by screwing this down, and if it doesn't stop, then I've got the right shim. If it does, I've got to add more, which means I've got to fold it over 3 times. So there we go. Oh, it stopped. Now you saw that? That means I don't have a good enough shim under here because it's stopping, right? There it is ticking, and then if I screw this in more, stops. So you unscrew it, don't screw it in hard. Then I can undo that just a bit, and I need to double that up, or put 3 turns on it, right? So I need to prep this paper again, but I've got to prep it with 3 turns and see if that works. And you do it exactly the same way. You just have to roll it 3 times. It's a little trickier because you're taking the paper now and you're turning it once, twice, and 3 times. So I recommend that you know, for your first turn, you could actually use, you could just use your tweezers maybe and put the first bend on it, because you're going to want 3 turns, but you're still going to want it to be pretty slim, right? So it's a bit trickier because the 3 turns is not as easy. So I just do that, and so you've got 1 turn on it. I'm assuming that the end right here is going to be the end that slides under, right? And then I can just do this and squeeze it down, make sure it's still pretty narrow, like that. And there, that's 1 turn. And now I got to put another turn on that. This is going to be the tricky part. So in this turn, I may just take my tweezers and grab it flat and then just get that turn on there, because I don't want it to be too wide to fit between the screw for the balance, right, and the other area there too. So let me see if I can just do it like that. I'm lucky because I got the guitar fingernails in there. So there's another turn right there. So all I need for Christmas is my 3 front teeth. So I don't have to worry about this side. This is the side I'm sticking in here. So I'll cut that, and then I'll see if 3 turns works. If 3 turns doesn't work, then I've got to do 4 turns, which is actually easier because then I just have to cut it over. So if I do this and just cut it there very carefully, right? You probably can't see me, but I'm going to go like this. You get your 8-year-olds to do this, and you're all good, man. So just cut it like this. I don't want to screw up the turns though, right? So there we go. And then I can go sideways like that, and it doesn't matter what I do back here. Rip it off, do something like that. And then come back to the watch again. And I want to get under there again with this, and I want to slide that through, just like I did last time. So if I can get it in there with the screwdriver, wonderful, right? And then slide it through, there we go. And I'm pretty much watching how far this thing is sliding through. That's actually pretty good right there. So it's sliding right through to the end. It's like sliding Miss Daisy. That's going way too far through. Where the heck is it going? Anyway, it's sliding through nicely. I think it's going underneath this plate too, so you gotta watch that doesn't happen, because I don't want it fouling up the second plate. Let me just mark this so I don't go too far. So if I mark it, just take your marker. Everybody's got to have a marker, right? Because I think that slid right through in underneath the mainspring. So just mark it off. You just want that much sliding through, right? So even though it just kept sliding, it's a wonderful thing because I've got a little bit of space between the mainspring barrel and the plate on top. So there's how far I want it to go. So just make a mark on that, like that. I don't want it to go any further than that. Otherwise I'm into the mainspring, right? So try again here. And again, I don't know whether this will work or not, but I'm going to take my screwdriver here and start sliding it in. I'm doing my best here. I need to get it up. There we go. All right, now I'm sliding it in, and I'm going to stop right here, right where that mark is. And I'm going to tighten this down just a bit, just a tad. And be very careful tightening it to make sure that the watch is still, the balance is still loose, right? So we're okay. Now if I tighten this again, and this balance stops again, then I need to put another turn on it. So let's try this out and see what happens. I'm squeezing this down nicely. Okay. All right, that worked. So that squeezed down. I didn't see any stopping of the balance. So it only required 3 leaves to do this. So obviously you don't want to leave the pocket watch looking like this. So what you need to do is get yourself, go on Amazon or someplace where you don't have to walk too far, and get yourself some razor blades. And not the type you need to shave with, the type for actually razor blading. So if I have these razor blades like this, and they've got a little coat on them like that, and I can take that razor blade and remove the jacket like this. And now I've got a razor blade I can work with. These things are pretty sharp. And all I need to do then is get nice and close, right? And I need to just shave the edge off of this. Like so. There we go. Now, you tell me if you can see the shim. That is absolutely perfect shim. And the watch now is free to rotate. And it's rotating nicely. And I don't have to worry about it anymore because it's shimmed. And the plate is up just a bit. And I've shimmed it back a bit, which is nice. And the angle between the jewel and the pivot is not causing any issue here. It's only because it's ever so slightly shimmed. So I put three sheets there to shim it properly. And so that, I'll just turn this around and you'll be able to see the shim ever so slightly. And you can see right here, let me move that back, there's the shim, and there's a little gap that shim has provided. And it's just enough of a gap for this thing to be put back together again perfectly. And I tighten that up nice and tightly. There's a good word. I tightened it up, and I tightened it enough to know whether the balance cock here was putting pressure on that top pivot, which is what you don't want, right? And the side shake on the jewel on top is not causing an issue because the jewel, the angle that the pivot is going through the jewel is minimal. So it's going through, this is going through vertically, basically up through the jewel hole, and the jewel hole would be horizontal, but there's not enough of an angle to cause an issue. So, and let me draw that. I got to draw something today, okay? I'm going to draw this in 2 seconds just to show what I mean. And this probably will go right into my mat. I need a new mat anyway. So there's the jewel hole here. I'll just draw it this way. There's the jewel hole like that. And I'll make it a little bit thick. So that's the jewel hole there. And then the pivot would be coming up. So if this was where the front of that balance cock that I just showed you, that's the front and that's the back. I'll do an upside down B. Look at that, eh? Brilliant. That's the front, that's the back. So the balance cock would go on this way, like continue on this way. That pivot would come through here. And what I've effectively done is I've raised the balance, and I'll just put a little bit of an angle there. I've raised it up there, but the pivot going through raised would then be, and I'll just exaggerate the heck out of this. The pivot would be at a bit of an angle. That's exaggerated like you wouldn't believe. and it would be touching the cap jewel right here. So I drew this a bit too long. So that'd be the cap jewel there going over the top, and the pivot would stop right there, and that's the cap jewel. So like that. So it would stop right there, and that's the balance would go this way and then this way, and away you go, right? That angle is so minimal that my side shake here is really not impacted by shimming, right? So shimming is so minor because you're shimming way back here, so as the angle way over here is minimal for that shim of 3 sheets of paper. So that's it. That's how you shim a balanced cock. This specific one, but it's pretty much done the same for all of them. And as you can see, it's successful, and that's the balance that the balance staff I just replaced, and I had to use a special had to use a special punch actually to reduce the size of the hole in it so the roller table would fit in properly. It's a whole other video, but that's this one here. So if you want to know how to shim a balance, this is the video to watch. So thanks for watching my channel. I'm JD. Have a great day, and come back. Don't forget to subscribe and come back soon. I've got more stuff coming.